What's up? I'm coming at you with the top five books I read in 2020. Now, I think I did not meet my goal for the year 2020 last year. I didn't meet my goal for how many I wanted to read, but I'm determined to meet my goal this year. But I read a lot. I'm not gonna say I didn't read 30. I think I read a little bit under 30. And a lot of them were small. I'm not gonna lie. Last year was rough. We all know it was rough last year. Um, but yeah, I did read some really good books. I read some decent sized ones, and some of those made this list. And I would say last year was a really good reading year compared to the year before that. It was definitely a lot more successful. It was definitely really enjoyable. Before the school had shut down, I had memories of sitting by the window, um, in the library, the big windows at the back of the library, just sitting there on a snowy day or a rainy day and looking out and reading. The chair was comfy and everything like that. I have good memories now of the books that I read from 2020. And yeah, I chose five because I didn't want to do more than five because that just wouldn't be fair. I don't think I read enough to pick a top 10. That just doesn't make sense. And plus, I don't feel like a lot of the ones that I read last year were really worthy enough for top 10. So I did a top five. So yeah, the first one on my list is actually one of the first ones that I read in the year 2020 was The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn. And I really enjoyed this book. It's a thriller. Um I'm looking at the book itself right now. I did not have a pleasant time with my copy's smell. It literally smells like mildew. Like it smells like it was sitting in someone's basement for far too long. But that's fine because this story makes up for that smell like 10 times over. Um I think the reason I picked this up was because I saw Gillian Flynn or Gillian Flynn or however you call it. Her blurb was right on the front, and then Joe Hill and Stephen King and Ruth Ware have blurbs on the back of the book. And I knew that the movie was supposed to come out last year. Little did I know it's actually coming out this year in probably the late summertime on Netflix, which, yo, I really don't even know if I can wait any longer on this thing. Um, but I read this, and it's so funny because I read this in the beginning of the year, not even realizing that we'd all be stuck in our houses and everyone would eventually come to have agoraphobia. Isn't that funny how that works? Like, I literally read this in the beginning of the year, not even knowing what was going to happen. And then, what do you know? Everyone's got agoraphobia now. It was, wow. This book, I just could not put it down. It's a thriller, if you don't know. It's about this woman named Anna Fox, who's got agoraphobia, which is the fear of going outside. I've had that my whole life. No, I'm just kidding. And she's basically a drunk, and she's got a roommate. She watches Alfred Hitchcock movies, which actually is kind of funny that she watched Alfred Hitchcock movies because little did I know I was gonna, you know, get an addiction to start watching Alfred Hitchcock movies this year as well. I'm a big fan of Alfred Hitchcock now. Wow, his movies are just chef's kiss, amazing. Just watch them. Like, you can obviously tell AJ Finn or whatever the hell his real name is. is actually a pretty big fan of Alfred Hitchcock movies because he references them like an absurd amount of but trust me, they are really that good. And she's basically, the whole thing is, right, is if you've ever watched Rear Window, which is an Alfred Hitchcock movie, imagine Rear Window but modernized, and instead of it being a guy, it's a girl spying on her neighbors. And so basically, yeah, this woman's a drunk. She doesn't ever leave her house. She's a quote recluse. In New York City, and she spies on the neighbors, and some new neighbors come to town across the street, and she thinks she sees something terrible happen, and I guess you just have to read to find out. But it's basically, and when I watched Rear Window this year, I really did see all of the similarities, and they really, it was a good movie, and this is a good book. This book, I tabbed this thing up so many times. This thing is just so good. A lot of world building, even though you're inside her home. A lot of character building, a lot of suspense. Just lots of twists and turns. And I gotta tell you, I remember when I finished this book, I finished it in my study hall. And like a lot of teachers must have read this thing in 2019, I think, when it came out. And I remember sitting in the classroom, and I was at the last, like, 25 pages or so. And oh my god, I finished it in the classroom where, like, the study hall. And my study hall teacher was actually my freshman year English teacher. And she, like, I guess she knew, like, I was, like, reading or whatever. Like, I was telling her about the book and whatever, and she read it. And so she could understand. At the end, I was like, oh my god, I didn't see that coming. And she was like, yeah, I know, it was so good. But anyway, I have good memories around this book now, and nothing is going to change that. I really wanted to go see the movie with my friends last year, but then we know what happened, and they delayed it and delayed it and delayed it. And now it's going to be on Netflix, so whatever. But this book is, I cannot recommend it enough. And no wonder why there's all these famous authors giving him, like, praise. No matter how shitty this guy might be in real life, this book is amazing. Just go read it now. I tell you, go read it now. It will change your life. It's so good. But actually, maybe don't read it, because if you want to feel even worse about your situation, about the fact that you're staying inside so much, maybe don't read this, because you feel like you're really not escaping. You're just, like, getting entrenched in staying inside even more. I don't know. It's a good book. I'm actually really glad that I read it before quarantine, before everything crazy started to hit the fan. I'm so glad that I read this book. It, no matter how bad that author is, nothing is going to change my opinion on how good that book is. Period. End of story. Okay, now the next one was definitely, I'm going to say probably even an all-time favorite. This book was amazing. I haven't read 1984 yet. I'm going to do that for sure this year. That might even be the next book I read. But I read Animal Farm first because it's smaller, and boy, oh my gosh. This thing, everybody needs to read this book. I'm telling you, everybody needs to read this book. It's only like 150 pages or so. Not even, bro. It's not even 150 pages. Listen. If you're a revolutionary, or you're an activist, or you think you're a revolutionary, or you think you're an activist, or you're just, or you just don't want to be deceived or anything like that, read this book. I'm telling you right now, George Orwell's Animal Farm. amazing. I think they even came out with like a video game. Just don't even pay attention to all the like BS that's surrounding this book. I'm telling you, read it today. Like, read it this month. Read it this week. It's really short, and you need to read it. Everyone needs to read this. This book, I tabbed the hell out of this book too, and it's not even 150 pages long. This thing is such a lesson to anybody that wants to get active in politics or anything like that. Basically, what this book is about, and I'll sum it up for you. Basically, what this book is about, it's about an animal farm, but everything about this book is an analogy for. Most people say it's an analogy for communism and all that other stuff, and what was going on at the time that George Orwell wrote this. But when you read this in modern times, I'm telling you, it is so relevant. It's so funny that all of his works stay relevant. It is insane. When you look at all of these movements, right? BLM, Antifa, and I always said I wasn't going to get political on this channel, but you kind of can't ignore it with this one. And most of the stuff I read kind of connects back to the real world anyway. Okay, so anyway, when you look at all of these movements that are arising, right, you want to make sure that, and all these people that are revolutionaries or whatever, you want to make sure you're not putting another group or another person into power that's just going to suppress you and put you down even more, right? You don't want to be putting someone into power that's just going to make your life even worse and is you get what I'm saying. Like, you don't want to put someone in power that's basically going to do exactly what the people before had done, which is, control and rule over the people and oppress them, right? That's not what you want. So this book has so many different quotes and stuff in it. This book is so important to read, because you start to understand. It's like, okay, so the ruling class on a farm, right, is the human, right? Because they run the farm, they own the farm, they own the animals, right? Think of that as the government, right? And all the animals on the farm are us, right? And they get herded, they get beat, they get whipped, they starve to death, they're beat, they're bruised, whatever. And so what happens when you take the human off the farm? Well, usually some ruler or somebody comes into power that is going to replace the human. So in this analogy that I'm using or whatever, or the analogy from the book, basically, if you overthrow a government, someone's going to take power. Someone's going to take over, who is going to be the person that tells everyone else what to do and how we should live our lives, right? And basically in the book, I don't want to really spoil it, but there is one animal that rises to power after the human is gone, and they basically run the shit from there. And guess what? They make the animals think that they're nothing like the human, that they would never do what the human did to them, but they end up doing exactly the same thing. And then what do the animals do? They make excuses for this animal that takes charge, that takes the reins. They keep making excuses like, oh yeah, they're not like them because they're doing this for us and they're doing this for us, even though actually the conditions are even worse. That's kind of the metaphor. Like, that's kind of how it kind of relates back to communism is because you think you're getting, or socialism, you think you're getting something better, but you're really not. So everyone needs to read this book. This book is just absolutely amazing. I'm trying to find a quick quote that would kind of, oh, and it's, yeah, so they're basically given all these distractions and stuff to basically think that they're doing better off, but they're actually doing way worse. I'm telling you, everyone needs to read this book. It is so easy to, like, a 5-year-old can understand what George Orwell was trying to tell people through this book. This book is amazing. Everyone needs to read it. Okay, next one. Again, kind of another political one. Can't help it, y'all. This is all I read. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Everyone is talking about this book as well. 1984, yes, it's very, very relevant still. Fahrenheit 451, which I also read this year, it is not that great of a book in my personal opinion. I really don't like it that much. I think Ray Bradbury, yeah, he's a genius, but I didn't really like the book, and I actually like the movie with Michael B. Jordan and stuff even less after reading the book. The book is good. It's got a lot of lessons, but by far, out of all the classic type dystopians or utopians that I read this year, this is by far my favorite. There is so many, wow. Just this book right here, Brave New World, is amazing. Just there's so many good quotes in this one too. Basically, to sum it up, it's basically about a society in which there is no mom and dads. There's no any of that. All of the humans that are around, all of the people are basically genetically modified, and they are basically made in test tubes, kind of, and they're all there's like you can have like up to, I don't know, 100 twins or something crazy like that. It's something ridiculous. Yeah, it's like a genetic engineering and stuff like that, and basically programming kids from an extremely young age, programming them, telling them what they should like, what they shouldn't like from a young age, programming them to basically stay in line and not do anything crazy. It is it talks about consumerism and convenience, and it basically outlines all of the problems with our world today. It's like everyone wants everything on demand. Also, the absence of religion, the absence of an actual God. Instead, they worship Ford, which, at the time, I guess Ford was big or whatever, and it's kind of funny, right? It's like instead of worshiping a God, they're worshiping a corporate CEO. I don't know, man. It was a trip. Yeah, and so they basically think of Ford as a god, and it talks about using drugs and sex and anything that basically will numb people down and dumb people down, being used against them, kind of, and they don't even really realize it. And they also talk about the Reservation, which, if you watch the modern making, the miniseries of Brave New World, you will notice that instead of, like, to be politically correct, they had to make it like a tourist attraction, like a Six Flags type thing. Whereas in the book, it's actually kind of like, a reservation, like an Indian reservation. So you just need to read the book and not watch the show, because the show, again, is kind of like Fahrenheit 451. It's nothing like the movie, the show. It's nothing like it. You have to read the book. You have to get into the original text to understand what it's about. And it talks about how human life isn't really valued, and you're just it just talks about a lot of really interesting things. It talks about the food chain, like, like being at the top of the food chain, or being having more power over someone else. And it talks about how the only people that are able to have basically access to the Bible, to anything like that, are the ones at the top. It's really so good. And actually, I feel like a lot of people, we all talk about 1984 and stuff, but this in a way is more relevant because of how dumbed down civilization is, and how they're basically told what to do and what not to do. And it's really a good a good book. And here I had highlighted I think, oh yeah, so in the book they reference Shakespeare, and how, I guess, at the reservation, if I'm not mistaken, they are allowed to read, and basically, they're allowed to read and learn and stuff like that. And they're called savages. Again, in the show they could not show this because it would not be politically correct in today's day and age. But anyway, I think this is the part that I had highlighted here, is at the end when Bernard and them are having this conversation about why people can't do things. Okay, so I'm just gonna read you what I highlighted. It says, the world's stable now. People are happy, they get what they want, and they never want what they can't get. Basically, what that's saying is, like, they get what they want, and they never want what they can't get. And the reason why they don't, and they never want what they can't get. So they never want to be free thinkers. They never want to, think ever. They don't want to do anything that would be even remotely thought-provoking, because they can't do those things, right? And it's very, very interesting. And it says, they're well off, they're safe, they're never ill, they're not afraid of death, they're blissfully ignorant of passion in old age, they're plagued with no mothers or fathers, they've got no wives or children or lovers to feel strongly about, they're so conditioned that they practically can't help behaving as they ought to behave. So basically, like, you remove all these things, or you try to remove all these things from people's lives, and they just don't care anymore. And I had said on the side here, a world with no struggle makes weak and docile people. That's the truth. If you don't have struggle or anything to worry about in your life, you're gonna be completely docile. But Yeah, it's just everything is so good, and they talk about liberty, and they don't know what that is, and it's just you just need to go read this. It's just like Animal Farm. It's a must read. You've got to read it. You've just got to. For your own good, just read it. If you've read 1984, read this. Understand that there are differences, but this thing is honestly, it's like you give people what they want, which is to basically dumb them down, which is sex and drugs. Just give them that all day long, and they won't be questioning anything. The next book that I read, I don't have a physical copy of, is The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. Now, a lot of people that are in my personal life were probably really shocked when I decided to read Handmaid's Tale and The Testaments this year. I did it because I want to understand what people think is going to happen and what these feminazis think. Like I said, I wasn't going to get political on this channel, but these are the books that I read, y'all. I can't help it. I had actually read Handmaid's Tale this year as well, and I'm not going to lie, The Testaments was actually, to me, better than The Handmaid's Tale. It's a very unpopular opinion, I know. A lot of people are probably going to disagree with me, but the reason why I believe The Testaments is significantly better than The Handmaid's Tale is because Aunt Lydia is in it a lot more than any other character, and I just have to be real with you. Aunt Lydia is definitely my favorite character when we're talking about The Handmaid's Tale, and I just love her so much, and that's why I loved this book a lot. But there were a lot of other cool lessons wrapped up in this one as well. Political infiltration, you know what I'm saying? Basically, make your enemy think that you're one of them, and you infiltrate. You collect all the data, you collect all the receipts, the all this stuff, and then you expose it in the end. I'm telling you, if you are a person that loves Aunt Lydia in the show, you need to read this book. This book, she's a boss. She's badass. I love her in this book. That was actually I think I'd kind of like I did with the Dead Zone this year. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll read some physically, like some of the book physically, and then I'll read some of it in the audiobook, or then sometimes I'll do both and I'll read the physical copy while I'm listening to the audiobook, which I think I actually did with this one. I listened to the audiobook, and then who actually Ann Dowd actually does narrate Aunt Lydia in this book, which is even more amazing, bro. It's like you're actually watching the show, but you're not. You're reading the book. Anyway, it's amazing. You need to listen to the audiobook if you read this book. I loved it. There were so many good parts and good quotes in the book. I really enjoyed it. I really actually feel like I enjoyed it better than the first book. I think I actually really enjoyed The Testaments better. Aunt Lydia is honestly my favorite one in the show, in the book, in the Handmaid's Tale universe. She's my favorite. And this book made me love her even more. So yeah, it's a good book, y'all. It's a really good book. You should read it. You also should read the first book, The Handmaid's Tale. Like I said, the reason why I didn't put it on this list is because I actually think The Testaments is better. That's a very unpopular opinion, but I don't care. So I actually read the books. I watched the show. I actually also watched the movie as well, and I'm a fan of both of them. Am I a fan of the message that women should just Well, let me just not even gonna get into that. If you know me, you know me, and I'm not about the message that the book and movie and show all portray. I do think it's an interesting idea that this country could go like that, could turn into something like that. I think it's an interesting idea. I just think it's not plausible at all. I don't think it's realistic. I think people that are scared of something like The Handmaid's Tale happening are just like retarded and just stupid. It's like dumb, but it's a good book. It's a good movie. I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. Margaret Atwood is a good writer. She's a fantastic writer, and just because her ideology isn't the same as mine doesn't make her a bad person. You feel me? So yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. Okay, the last book I have on my list, the fifth book that I have on my list, is The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. Oh my god. Yo, like, I don't know where I heard about this from. I think Ready to Glare in a video or whatever was talking about the movie, which, by the way, I can't find anywhere. Somebody help me, please. Oh my god. Was this disturbing? Did this scare me to my core? I read a lot of nonfiction books this year compared to any other year. By that, I think I only read two. I had read this one and I'll Be Gone in the Dark, and maybe there's even another one that I'm missing. But oh my gosh. This book was so good. And the reason why this one made it and I'll Be Gone in the Dark didn't is because, honestly, if you watched the miniseries, you could basically get the same thing that you got in the book and the miniseries. That's why I didn't put that one up here. And also, The Radium Girls is wow. Let me explain to you. So I read this one on audiobook on Hoopla, and oh my gosh, it was so good. Yo, it was really good. So it's basically about all these girls, and it's kind of crazy and it's kind of freaky to think about the fact that you walked possibly the same streets as all these dead girls. In the book, they mention New Jersey. They mention, I think they mention like another state. I think like maybe Missouri or something. I don't freaking know, man. I don't know. Basically, this all takes place in Jersey, though, and these girls are painting dials in a factory, right, with radium that this guy found, and it's a glow-in-the-dark substance, and people are like, oh yeah, this is cool, we'll make these watches for the war that our soldiers will be able to read the clock a lot easier during the night if we paint these dolls with radium, which is a glow-in-the-dark substance. And these girls, they got paid good money. This was a good job. They got paid, and they had to be really precise about it too, because they couldn't waste this precious material. And so they're licking the brushes, and oh my god, it's literally, this book will, you want to talk about 1,000 Ways to Die. If you thought that show was freaky, read this book. Watch the movie when it comes out. It is so freaky. It's not even funny. So these women, they're taking the radium, and they're taking the brush and they're putting in the radium, they're putting it in their mouth so that they can get the brush at a very fine point. Because if you know anything about brushes, like for instance, if I buy a liner brush, right, and because I'm an artist, I know these things. If I buy a liner brush at, like, let's say Michael's, and I want to use it to paint really fine details, and I want to use it to paint like strands of hair, right? And I use it and I use it and I use it, and eventually the strands will start splaying, like, and fraying. Not even by your own fault. You can clean it as soon as you possibly can, and it still would have that problem, and it wouldn't be a fine point, so you'd be kind of like messing up a little bit. Well, these girls, the way that fixes that problem is you just wet the brush, or you add water or something, and it kind of, for the moment that you're painting, it kind of, forms back together, if you get what I'm saying. You probably don't get what I'm saying. You'd probably have to understand, but anyway, I'm trying to explain this to you. And basically, to get this fine, precise line when they're painting on the numbers and the dials and stuff, they have to take the brush, dip it into the radium, and then put it back on their lips and wet the brush. Oh my God, yo! And when you think about it, it's not that much. It's not that bad, bro. Oh my God, these poor women! What a miserable way to die. That is like freaky. So they take these brushes, and over the course of how many ever years, they're working at the factory, they're making good money, they come home with glow in the dark shit all over their body, and they think it's fun, and they think it's cool, they've got it all over their face, and they're, getting with their man, and they think it's fun. I think it even was on 1,000 Ways to Die. But anyway, and they think it's cool, and they think it's fun, and they think it's whatever. And then years go by, and it drags on, and then, oh, my tooth is messed up. Oh, my bones are kind of breaking. They're kind of cracking. They're kind of feeling. And it's like, as someone who has bad knees and bad teeth, this is a nightmare situation. Like, I can only imagine how miserable this was for these poor women. I mean, my knees squeak after going up 3 flights of stairs, and that's just because I'm tall and I'm bony and I'm lengthy and whatever. These poor women, oh my God. I mean, when you read this book, it made me cry. It literally made me cry. It's so sad. And to think these women walk the same streets as everybody, it's just, it's frightening, it's scary, it's eerie, it's, oh my God, and just consumerism and capitalism, it's freaky. It's freaky what money can do to people. And these poor women, they start to realize, oh my God, my jaw is falling apart, my teeth are coming out of my mouth, and oh my God, my bones are breaking. I can't function. I can't walk up the stairs. I'm just like, wow. And I'm reading this, and I'm just like, oh my God, these women like really had to go through this. And they thought they were making good money, and oh my God. And then years later, they start not being able to function, and it's just like, oh my God. And these poor women, they go to get their teeth removed, and then it just makes the problem worse, and then their jaw falls out, and it's like, oh my God, this is what nightmares are made of. If you want to like seriously get freaked out, like, I'm not even joking, pick up this book, because this is like gonna haunt you for life. I mean, you'll literally, if you walk down the streets of Newark, you'll just like think to yourself, oh my God, the ghosts of those women are here. Like, it's just like scary. And oh my God, it's just, and these attorneys that were trying to help these women, these dentists that were trying to help these women, and then some of these dentists were paid out, and they were in the pocket of this corporation, this Radium Corporation, or whatever the hell, and these women, and so the first generation dies off mysteriously, and then the second generation of dial painters are like, what's going on? And then by the third generation, they're like, oh my God, like, we need to do something, and these poor attorneys and lawyers that were trying to help these women, but it took years, and wow. And the tests, and it took so long to even figure out what radium actually did to people and how dangerous it was. And it's literally radioactive. If you didn't already get that from the name, it's literally a radioactive material. It's glow in the dark. And actually, what's so disturbing about it is, guys, like, it's not even funny. What's disturbing about it, right, is these women. It's just so sad. It's a really sad story, guys, when you read it. These poor women, so they start to lose their bone matter and their bone material. And some of these women had men in their lives, and they had kids, or they were trying to have kids and they couldn't because their bodies were failing from the inside out. And oh my god, it's disturbing, guys. It's really disturbing. And some of them had kids, and they were worried, and they couldn't even go near their kids, really, and they were scared, is they were like radioactive. And these poor men had to watch their women die off. And oh my god, and whole families died off because, one woman would go to the factory and she'd get paid out real good, and then she'd be like telling her sister, and this is the worst part of it, guys, and then she'd go tell her sister, hey, we make good money here, you want to go, you want to help me work at the factory? And then not even realizing she just killed her own sister. By getting her own sister to work at the factory, she basically killed her own sister by telling her to be there. And it's so bad. It's literally so freaky and so disturbing. And then when the women find out that they're literally dying and there's nothing they can do about it, there's no cure. And the most eerie part of this is I think towards the end of the book, and they're like, radium doesn't, like, it's kind of like plastics. Like, you learn that, like, plastics take so long to actually disintegrate and whatever, like, biodegrade. Radium stays where it is for like 1,000 years. And the most crazy part is, they're like, oh, those women are still glowing in their graves to this day. And that got me. I'm like, oh my god, you're telling me their skeletal remains are glowing in the funeral, in their caskets, in their coffins. Is just like really disturbing. But I'm telling you, it's a good book. It's to be aware of new materials and new things that people start to use. It's very good to be aware of the possible dangers of something new on the market. Like, I'll mention this in the top 16 movies that I watched in 2020. Dark Waters is another good example of a true story of something that everyone thought, Teflon was so cool and so trendy or whatever when it came out, but little did everyone know it was actually like toxic, hazardous, known to cause serious issues. And it's just like, oh my god, man, you just gotta be careful. Like, I'm telling you, this whole radium thing, when I was listening to it, I was crying, because I'm like, oh my god, people are so evil. Like, what people will do for $1. It's just, oh my god. And they put these women through hell. They put them on the stand, and they made them go through years and years and years. And these corporations, they kind of like refuse to pay for their medical expenses and medical bill. It's just, oh my god, it's disturbing. It's, quite frankly, there's 1,000 ways, 1,001 ways to die and everything, but Jesus, this is like one of the worst ones. Like, just the hell that these women were put through. It's just crazy. But it was a good book nonetheless. Like I said, some honorable mentions are Fahrenheit 451, I'll Be Gone in the Dark. I'll Be Gone in the Dark was good, but like I said, it was almost the miniseries. It was almost word for word what the book was, but it was a good book. It was a good book. It was a good miniseries. Handmaid's Tale again. That's honorable mention. Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King was really good, but I couldn't put it on this list, y'all. I just couldn't do it. The Road by Cormac McCarthy was good. Yeah. The Time Machine by H.G. Wells was also really good. There's a lot of good ones that I read this year, but those were the top 5. Those were the ones that really stood out to me. I don't think I'll ever forget any of these stories. These stories are so ingrained in my mind now that I just don't think I can forget about them. All 5 of them were amazing, were quite frankly just perfect, amazing, what books should be. And kind of a variety here. I don't really read that many different genres. I said that in my Q&A. Don't expect me to read like 1,000 different genres. I'm not that person. Okay, I stick to what I know. Thrillers, dystopian, that's kind of my niche. That's kind of where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? And then, like I said, I'll read the occasional nonfiction that's interesting to me. Or I'll read the occasional whatever, like something that I completely would never read, like The Handmaid's Tale or The Testaments, usually, and then I just go for it and I end up loving it. See, that's how I work. So anyway, stay tuned. The next video that I'm going to be releasing is the top 16. I couldn't do 15, guys, because I just couldn't. One of them was just too good to not put on the list. Movies that I watched in 2020. And then after that, you will be seeing books that I want to read in 2021. So, anyway. Till next time. Bye, I guess.